Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, from wherever you are, and welcome to this morning's webcast. You sort first, the brand new product of SHS Viveon, supply chain compliance. My name is Rolf Anweiler, and I've got the great pleasure being your host this morning, together with my colleague Birgit Wynn, product owner, compliance products compliance group at SHS Viveon. Before we start, as usual, some housekeeping rules. All lines are muted as long as the presentation from Birgit lasts. You can always ask questions, specifically during Q&A. So we'll be presenting about 30 minutes, and then we've got time for 10 to 15 minutes Q&A. But nonetheless, you can always ask questions during the presentation and put them in the questions module of GoToWebinar or ask questions via the chat module. Any additional questions, any requests, you can always direct to the email address info@shsviveon during or after the presentation. And with that, I've got the great pleasure handing over to our presenter this morning, Ms. Birgit Wynn.
Thank you very much, Wolf. Yes, my name is Birgit Wynn. Welcome also from my side. We're very happy and proud to present you our new supply chain compliance product. Within SHS, I'm the senior product owner for the compliance product group, and of course this product is part of this product group. But before we start, I would like to say 2-3 sentences about who we are and what we do. So some of you may know us, some are not that familiar with us. So SHS Viveon is a company that provides credit risk and compliance management products for B2B, so for enterprises. We have more than 30 years of experience, and our clients are all global players, all different scales of company sizes. So we really serve all around the globe. As you can see, more than 35 countries, we have happy customers. So enough said, the rest you can find on our website. So today we're here to talk about our supply chain compliance product. And we're looking at the supply chain compliance topic also because it's a very hot topic all around the globe, not just in Germany, but our product currently is focusing also on the Supply Chain Act in Germany that will come into effect January 2023. And you might wonder what companies are affected. Is it just a local phenomenon? Is it a phenomenon that goes around the world? Yes, it goes around the world. It is not only in France and UK and other countries that also have comparable acts in place, but also simply the thought when you have a company located in Germany that falls under the Supply Chain Act, but has a supplier in the US or in South America or in Asia, wherever on this planet, they will have to follow the local rules, the German rules, simply because they work together with a German company. So that goes up front. In Germany, what companies are affected? In Germany, as of January, companies larger than 3,000 employees are affected. And the year after, it's going to be companies larger than 1,000 employees. So you see, it's really decreasing the hurdle. And it means that after probably another year or two, most of the companies in Germany will be affected. Nevertheless, there are already companies that are a lot smaller than 3,000 employees that are looking into implementing measures and looking into the compliance of their suppliers. Also, on the one hand, as a marketing effect, but on the other hand, also because they feel very committed and only want to work with compliant suppliers. So which industries are affected? It is not something that only affects already regulated industries like banks and insurances that we're all very familiar with, that they have a high level of regulation, but it goes all over. It's any industry is affected. So we're talking about any retail industry, we're talking about wholesale manufacturers and consulting as well. And here some might think, okay, it only affects the key suppliers that you have for your product, for example, if you're talking about manufacturers, but it's not that. It's really not limited to goods suppliers. It's valid for all suppliers of each company. So That means it includes even the supplier of your cleaning products. It also includes consulting service suppliers. So it really includes any supplier that you as a company work together with. So not just the main ones, any supplier and consulting service suppliers as well. So some companies might say, well, let me just wait and see what happens. Let's see if it's really such a sharp act and if they're really serious about the fines. That's not a good idea at this stage, because if we look at the past also how the data protection and also competition law came into force, I mean, the fines are really high when you look at up to 2% of the annual sales turnover, and the exclusion of any public tender. It's a quite harsh fine that you would be confronted with in case you breach the German Supply Chain Compliance Act. So what does a company have to do? You have to implement a risk management system, you have to conduct regular checks, and what exactly in detail you will have to do, so how high is the hurdle and how deep you have to conduct the check, is something, yes, that we will see in the following year when the first cases will pop up and when it's really defined how deep you have to go. So most of you have probably also heard about the ESG criteria. So the ESG regulation that lays all above the Supply Chain Act includes the environmental, social, and governance topics. The German Supply Chain Act mainly focuses on the social part. That includes labor relations, that includes health safety, but it also includes cyber risk and various other social topics and community engagement. Whereas the environmental parts that, of course, we're also always looking at is not that strong yet in the German Supply Chain Act. Nevertheless, it's something that we're looking at, and it's something that we're all facing to really be more considerate with. That includes topics like land use, like emissions, and any type of environmental compliance. The governance part, of course, is also included in it. It is more indirectly included, but it is very much also included. And for us, as you will see later, is also a crucial part of our product as well. So if you say as a company, yes, I would like to implement the measures, the relevant measures in order to be compliant with the regulation, you're facing several challenges. And there has been a study from the German Chamber of Industry and Commerce that came up that the biggest challenge that companies are facing is the increased bureaucratic effort. So in order to implement all these measures, companies need to adapt their processes. They need to get familiar with another tool. It's a huge cost that they're probably facing in order to be fully compliant, and therefore they also are afraid of a competitive disadvantage. On top, there is an increasing pressure from capital markets to be compliant and to follow the rules, because otherwise they're probably out of the game. So what have we thought? In order to decrease the processes that they have to adapt and to make it as smooth as possible for companies to be compliant with the Supply Chain Act, we decided we start directly at the customer system, where they store all the supplier relevant information, where they have the supplier master data. So starting from the company's CRM system, we start the whole process and we return the information back to the customer system. That means we have an end-to-end solution that enables the customer to stay within their processes, to stay within their environment, and they don't have to adapt their processes to that extent. They don't have to get familiar with any other products and learn how to use other products with long training sessions. But we decided we start from the customer system and we return everything to the customer system. So that said, we take the supplier master data from the customer system that we need to conduct the check. Then we decided to follow with a sanctions list check, because as a company, you of course need to make sure that you only work together with suppliers that are not on a sanctions list. And especially today, This is a very, very relevant topic when we're looking at the Russia issue. So sanctions list is a very crucial part, and that's what I meant also before when I said in the ESG topic, we're looking very much also at the governance part. This is here covered with the sanctions list check to start with, where the customer gets direct feedback whether their supplier is on a sanctions list or not, and also on which one. I will show you that part later. That is then followed by an ESG questionnaire. So many of you are already using questionnaires, but most of you are using long Excel sheets or any other very manual processes that the supplier has to fill out and return. So it's a quite tedious process, and for some suppliers a more annoying process to fill out these long Excel sheets or even paperwork and return it to you. So what we've done here is we decided to implement a questionnaire that is an online-based questionnaire that is easy to populate for the supplier, and also make it easy for the customer to always have a look at the responses given by the supplier. And he also gets an overview on how many questions were answered in a non-satisfying manner and how many were answered in a satisfying manner. So the customer can easily see how bad or how good the questionnaire was answered without having to go into the questionnaire. Of course, you can always look into it and get a good overview on which questions were not answered in a satisfying manner. The next module then that we're offering is the supplier risk assessment. Here the customer can sort his suppliers and assess the risk level of each supplier and conduct relevant, the respective checks in more depth or in less depth regarding each supplier, depending on the risk level. So I like the example of the textile industry. If you have a t-shirt provider, for example, or from Bangladesh, it probably has a different risk level than the one that provides from within Germany. Also, it makes a large difference whether it's a good supplier that's very crucial for example, the manufacturer in order to produce his product, or whether it's just the cleaning service provider that is also relevant, of course, for each entity, but it is not so crucial for the business itself. So here there are various criteria that you can apply in order to sort the supplier according to its different risk level and conduct the checks. Here again, we will have to see what the depth is that you really need to conduct the check, how deep you need to conduct the check. If, for example, you can say a not that relevant or not that high risk supplier, a rather low risk supplier, you just send out a questionnaire once per year. But this is to be seen whether that's something as a minimum standard and what the minimum standard exactly is. The next step then is the ESG check. The ESG check here that we provide is that the customer gets an ESG score. So as you also probably know, there's no absolute score out there right now on the market, but there's various data providers out there that provide an ESG score that they calculate based on their own criteria. So what we have decided to work together with Dun & Bradstreet here, we have a very good partnership with Dun & Bradstreet, so we decided to start the product together with them. And Dun & Bradstreet calculates an ESG score that is based on different single scores that cover the environmental, social, and governance part, and at the end provide an overall ESG score that we then send back to the customer system. So the customer sees then directly in a score from 1 to 5 whether the supplier has a good compliance level or a poor compliance level here. In that regard, we offer also a case management that enables the customer to define measures that the supplier might have to implement in case the ESG score is not satisfying. For example, if you have a very good supplier that's really crucial for your business, but the score is poor, the ESG score is poor, so then the customer can go see what are the reasons for this, and he can define measures that the supplier has to implement and in order to continue working with them and also improve his ESG score. And last but not least, we have the reporting. We also provide a reporting that every company is obliged to provide an ESG score reporting once per year. And this will be then in line with the ESG reporting standards that are currently being defined. And this will enable then the customer to directly generate a report out of our product. So we have just launched in September this product, and I would like to show you what we cover already in this version. And the highlighted boxes, as you can see here, are those that we already included. So you see the key and the core functionalities we have provided already in September now. So we are able to get the supplier master data from the customer system. You can conduct the sanctions list check, and the ESG questionnaire will go out to the supplier. We are currently working on the supplier risk assessment that will come in the future, as well as the case management and the reporting. The reporting is also functionality that, as the Supply Chain Act is not in place yet, is something that no company needs currently, but of course it will be available in 2023 when companies will have to provide the first reports in regards to supply chain compliance. So I mentioned before Dun & Bradstreet. Dun & Bradstreet is the data provider that we decided to start with as we're partnering with Dun & Bradstreet. And we get the sanctions list, for example, from Dun & Bradstreet that works based on their DUNS number. And you're probably also familiar with the DUNS number. It's the single identifier used by Dun & Bradstreet, but also by other data providers in order to conduct the relevant checks. And beyond the sanctions list that we get from Dun & Bradstreet, we also get the ESG score that I mentioned before. And here you have a brief overview on how it's gathered and how it's compiled. You see it's a system that Dun & Bradstreet has evolved how to generate the ESG score. And the data coverage here, it says 27 million plus. My last number I saw, I think yesterday I checked, it was more than 35 million. So it's really increasing, and they have a huge coverage. So that really enables our product to cover a lot of companies globally. Now comes the most exciting part, as I would like to say. It's the part where you get to see the product and how it works. This view that you see right now is something that actually the customer doesn't have to deal with, because, as I said before, we start from the customer system and we send everything back to the customer system. I would like to show you this view anyhow, as we don't have now the customer view, but this is something the customer can use, it doesn't have to. Now we have a list of suppliers in here that we entered. These are all real customers, these are all real companies. And so this is all live, as you can see here. So we have the name. We have what's the relationship, is it a customer, is it a supplier, we have the address, and then you can see whether the data was enriched. So in case the supplier master data is not complete, or it might be a little strange, there's spelling errors might occur, or whatever the case may be, you can enrich the supplier master data from the Dun & Bradstreet data. Also, then you see the next columns are the sanctions status. So OK is no sanctions list hit, and NOK is not OK for there is a sanctions list hit. So the supplier is on a sanctions list. Then you can see the ESG score. As I said, it goes from 1 to 5, 1 being a very good score, 5 being poor quality. You can see when was the last check done. The questionnaire status, so whether the questionnaire has been sent out. So when it's pending, that means it's with the supplier and we're waiting for a response. And also you see when the last questionnaire was populated by the supplier. Now let me take an example out here. Of course, the check is being done automated. If the customer wants to, he can also decide the frequency, but you can also conduct the check for a single supplier, as I'm going to show you right now. But this is just for demonstration purposes that I click on a single one. So I like to select the Chelsea Football Club. It's a supplier that I assume most of you are familiar with. Now we can see the overview here. You have all the tabs with the different master data and the information that you've seen in the table before. And below here, you see that the DUNS number I mentioned before is missing. Of course, not every company has the supplier DUNS number in the system, and sometimes it's also difficult to retrieve them. So we decided we make it also enable that you can fetch the DUNS number in case it's missing. So you just select the supplier and you go fetch. And when you fetch the DUNS number, it then checks what DUNS number it has available for the company. In this case, you see we have multiple hits for the name. So the matching score here is 100 for both. So that means we're pretty safe to select, for example, this one is our Chelsea, our supplier that we would like to check. So we say we select this one is the one we would like to work with from now on. So now that we've selected him, we see the DUNS number is here, and we are now able to trigger the supply chain compliance check. We can do this in this view, or we can just go back into the table view and we go for Chelsea and we say trigger SCC check. Don't be distracted by all the other options. This is just my admin view. So I just went on trigger SCC check for Chelsea. And as you can see here, it says SCC check is pending. Well, this usually takes only a few seconds. And after a few seconds, as you can see already, it's done. You have the result here. It says not okay, meaning Chelsea is on a sanctions list, and it has an ESG score of 2. So that is quite okay, I have to say. And here we also see the questionnaire was sent out and is pending. Now you wonder, what are the sanctions lists that Chelsea is on? So all you have to do is you can go back into this, but again, this information goes back to the customer system. And you go on sanction status. And here you can see the name of the sanctions list where Chelsea is listed on. If you go on the field SCC results, you also see the ESG score again, and also the date when it was last checked and the pending questionnaire status. So this is regarding the sanctions list check and the overall ESG score. And now I mentioned the SCC, the ESG questionnaire was sent out. As you can see, it's pending. So I would like to show you what the questionnaire looks like. So the supplier receives an email with a link for the questionnaire. So all he has to do is click on that link, and he gets to this landing page. So here he gets a brief explanation on what this is. He sees we just took this as an example, as a logo for the company that the supplier receives this email from, and of course our logo as well. So he sees where it's coming from. Here he gets the quick information on what this is all about, that this is the ESG questionnaire in regards to the check. Now we have thought that this is also a nice opportunity to verify the supplier master data. Most of you know how tricky it is to keep the supplier master data up to date and clean. So this will be pre-filled with the supplier's master data. So you have the supplier's name and the address. And the supplier can very quick at one glance check whether this is still correct or needs to be updated. If it needs to be updated, he can just simply update it in here. If it's correct, he just says, yes, the information is correct, and goes next. So then the customer has the confirmation that the data that he has, the supplier master data in his system, is still up to date. Then he goes into the questionnaire chapters. There is a general one up front, and there is a chapter in regards to environmental, social, and governance. So we cover all the 3 aspects of those criteria. And in case, for example, you have to populate something, it pops up, so you can enter the name and the email address and move on. And at any stage, the supplier can see where he stands in populating the questionnaire. So he has an overview on how much is left. So when it's done, he clicks Save Progress, submits the questionnaire, and it's being sent back. He can only finish the questionnaire when each and every question is answered. So it is not possible to just submit an empty questionnaire. So this is a type of quality check that we included in here. Now let me go back real quick to the presentation. So now you might wonder, why is our product so cool and why SHS Viveon, the supply chain compliance product? As I've mentioned now multiple times before, and I think from my personal perspective, this is one of the two really key aspects that we provide, is that we go end to end. We get the information from the customer system and we send it back. So what you've just seen in the demo is something the customer doesn't have to get familiar with. He doesn't have to train his employees to use it. So it's all being sent back to the customer system. So there's no large adaptation needed of his processes. So the fear that I mentioned before that many companies have, that they need to adapt processes to a large extent, this is not given. So we will get the information from the customer system and send it back. The other thing is that I mentioned we work together with Dun & Bradstreet right now. We are totally open and independent when it comes to data providers. That means we can work with any data provider. So in case, for example, the customer already has another data provider that he works with, we can simply connect that data provider and he can use the data coming from that data provider. Also, we can connect multiple data providers, meaning, for example, you have one that is more focused on environmental topics. You have another one that's more focused on social topics. So you can combine that and we provide you the product out of it. We generate the value then out of that data and provide it back to your customer system. So we are completely independent here. We're talking already to multiple data providers that we are connecting, and there will be more to come. And again, we're currently working on connecting others. This will definitely come in the near future. Then our product is audit-proof. Of course, this is something that's very crucial, so that everything is transparent and locked. Then we have also our pricing system is really very relevant because we decided to go as pay-as-you-go. So it's transaction-based, so you have a good overview on the cost. Also, you can decide if you want each and every module, or if you say, I don't want to use the questionnaire, so you can leave out the questionnaire, or you can leave out the sanctions list check in case you have other ways how you want to do this. So you can really combine each module, whatever serves you as a company best. So, thank you very much. And now I would say we go on to your questions.
Yeah, thanks, Birgit. Great presentation and telling from the questions I've received. Meanwhile, there's great interest in not only tackling the Lieferkettengesetz, the German Supply Chain Act, but actually getting more compliance into the supply chain and doing things like that. You've actually answered one question which came in via the chat, which was with regards to the data providers. You've just mentioned that the system is open to any data provider. Nonetheless, we've now started with D&B. A second question came up very early during the presentation with regards to the affected companies, right? So is an affected company a legal entity, or is an all-up, in German Konzernsicht, is an all-up view on the enterprise, including all the sub-legal entities needed? That was the question.
No, each and every company is affected, so it's not just the head of the company. It's not just a holding that's affected, but each and every company is affected. So this is really something that's very important to know, that it's nothing that you can say, well, we have our subsidiary in Germany, but we have our holding in the States. Well, that doesn't help you. So you are affected when you are located in Germany, even with a branch.
Perfect. I hope that question was answered. In case there's more detail needed, just please add that into the question module. Another question I received via the chat with regards to the questionnaire module in the product. Can that be configured?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. It's actually something I didn't stress that much in the presentation. For the questionnaire, we decided to go with different industry-specific questionnaires. So you have per industry different questionnaires that you can select as a customer that covers your specific needs. Of course, the largest amount is the same for every industry, but there are some deviances. So we decided to go with industry specifics, and that also enables us to give a proper analysis in the future of the questionnaire. So it means you cannot change single questions and always have different questionnaires per customer. That would also not be feasible, because simply if we have we don't plan to have only 10 customers per year, so that would be something that of course you can adapt every questionnaire manually. But we decided to go with the standardized questionnaires for each and every industry that covers your need. That also makes it a lot easier for the company, for our customer, to use the product, because they don't have to go through and become a specialist in generating these questionnaires. So it's a lot easier for all sides if we provide the fit industry questionnaires.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Birgit. Another question with regards to the ESG rating. Is that calculated by SHS Viveon? Is it a customer scorecard, or is it directly Dun & Bradstreet ESG score?
Well, this is a specific Dun & Bradstreet ESG score. There is currently no generic ESG score on the market. Each and every data provider calculates its own ESG score, and if you go to the Dun & Bradstreet page, you also find more details on how it is calculated. In this case, it is a specific Dun & Bradstreet score, as well as every other data provider generates its own ESG score. It is also something that we don't calculate, because we get the data from Dun & Bradstreet and we provide it to the customer without any own calculation behind this. So it is an ESG score from Dun & Bradstreet, and if the customer wants to, we can also get another ESG score from another provider.
Perfect, thank you. Another question came up with regards to how the product is positioned, right? So how do you compare against other products in the market / manual approaches?
Well, it's quite tricky to compare on the market, because there's not many products like that offer such a range that we do, and are so independent when it comes to data providers. So there's multiple products on the market coming from data providers that offer an infrastructure to make their data accessible to customers. What we do is we provide, though, the end-to-end solution. So that is something that not many competitors are offering. Also, the fact that we are completely independent from the data provider, so we don't have our own data that we provide and create an infrastructure around, but we're completely independent. So you can either use the already existing data provider you have, or you can say we combine 5-10 different data providers. So this is something that is really difficult to find out there on the market. So that makes it very, very hard to compare us to other data providers, to other competitors on the market.
Thank you. What do you suggest companies to do just right now? So how would you, since at least for German companies or companies headquartered in Germany, the 1st of January is just around the corner, obviously. So any recommendations on how to initiate the process, right? So how to prepare now? Are there classic steps to take now, internally as well as externally, prepare processes, prepare organizations?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you for that. It's really crucial to start as early as possible, because if you are a company larger than 3,000 employees, I mean, January is right around the corner. So what I would recommend is to look around, to compare the market for what you actually need. So depending on your size, and depending on if you only have 100 suppliers and you know them for the last 50 years personally, and you say, okay, you have your checks in place, then it's all fine. If you are a larger company with multiple suppliers that you don't know very well because simply of the huge amounts, then we strongly recommend to look for a product that supports you in conducting those checks, because if you want to do this manually, it's just not manageable. So we really recommend to look into the product. Of course, we're happy if you consider our product as well. If you look what really serves your purpose. So we understand that you don't want to implement too much and provides you too much information, and that's why we decided to keep it slim and decide to provide a product that really offers what is absolutely needed right now, with the option to extend it to a lot more than you currently have to do, but you might want to do in the near future. So what we recommend is really make an assessment, conduct an assessment internally. How many suppliers do you have? How well do you know them? What your current processes are, and how much of them you can automate, because all this manual work eats up time, eats up resources, and check for what you can automate and what you really still need to conduct manually.
I think that's a very important overall theme I sense in the market as well. Like, start as pragmatic and as simple as possible, and then refine further down the line, and not creating a massive overhead of costs and additional work because of the German Supply Chain Act. Finally, a pricing question. Are the D&B licenses included in the SHS fees?
Well, the D&B data is not included. So whatever cost you have for the data provider is something that is extra. The simple logic behind that is that the customer has a contract with us as the provider of this product, and then he can decide which data provider he wants to use. So this is something that's not up to us, so we can also not include this in the pricing, but it's something that goes on top. So it's also something where the customer can connect the data providers he needs, and so therefore the costs occur as he chooses the data provider.
Perfect. And with that, I believe we have all questions covered, which I received. So yeah, in the good old eBay spirit, I'll count from 3 to 1. If anybody has a final question, so 3, 2, 1. That's obviously very speedy typing now required. No, I don't see any more questions at the moment. So with that one, I would close the Q&A session, and I would close the webinar this morning. And yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed it. Everybody had a really good time. I personally think that the topic is super interesting and super important. Again, 1st of January is not that far off. Birgit, great job. Many thanks to you for doing this presentation and the product demo. And yeah, for everybody who has additional questions, again, feel free to drop us an email at info@shs-viveon.com, or just go to our website, use the chat functionality, and drop us your questions or requirements. And with that one, I wish you a good rest of the day and a good rest of the week, and hope to see you soon again. Bye-bye for now.
Bye. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.